mentioned by Dr. Strawn, my name is Nielsen Beneby. I am the Operations and Maintenance Manager for Transmission and Distribution at the Grand Bahama Power Company. Today I'll be presenting on the future of sustainable energy generation plan for Grand Bahama Island. As an engineer by profession, when I think of a sustainable energy future, I think of an equation. Let's talk simple math for a moment. It's one island supporting the future of 60,000 plus residents and one electric utility providing energy to nearly 20,000 customers. Multiply that by the need to aid in the growth of an economy, support new investments, keep downward pressure on energy rates, and maintain our foreign currency reserve. That equates to an overwhelming responsibility for a team of 200 GBPC employees feverishly working together to create solutions for this complex equation. Today, I will share information on two ongoing initiatives. The Waterkey Clean Energy Solution Project, that was earlier referenced by Dave McGregor, our COO, and grid modernization through energy storage for Grand Bahama Power's electricity grid. Through these strategic projects and others, we are leveraging world-class technology and advancements in engineering that will help us achieve our goal to create a sustainable energy future for this beautiful island. Waterkey. You may have heard about GBPC's ongoing clean energy project for customers of Waterkey. I will take a moment to fill you in with a little more detail about the project. Two. Thank you. Mic check. Good. I will take a moment to fill you in with a little more detail about the project and provide one answer to the aforementioned equation. Waterkey is an isolated island just off the northern coast of Grand Bahama with a peak load of 26 kilowatts serving 10 customers and is the only customer base not tied directly into the GBPC's main transmission and distribution system. Currently, power is generated on Waterkey by two single-phase 26 kilowatt diesel generators that operate independently. To fuel the generators, 330 gallons of diesel is transported to Waterkey in 45-gallon drums via ferry boat every 2 weeks. The ferrying operation requires manual transfer of the fuel from a diesel trailer into plastic 45-gallon drums. Due to the shallowness of the water between the mainland and Waterkey, the diesel drums are transported via a 17-foot Boston whaler and then manually lifted onto a dock where the drums are rolled into place and the fuel is pumped from the bottom of a hill into a storage tank. In reference to a question raised earlier by the gentleman from the Bahamas National Trust, one of the core values at GBPC is environmental stewardship. The risk to the environment in the event of an oil spill during this fuel transportation exercise is unacceptable, and it's too great, and it's something that GBPC can no longer continue. There's an immediate need to change how we provide energy to the residents of Waterkey, a change that is necessary to ensure that Waterkey has a sustainable future. Our goal with this clean energy project is twofold. One, support ecotourism for the businesses on Waterkey, and two, protect the marine environment and sustain the existing natural ecosystem of this area. As we shared with residents at a community meeting in mid-2017, GBPC has created a solution that will eliminate the inherent risk in this current energy supply method to the residents of Waterkey. Both diesel generators will be replaced with primary energy sources of approximately 30 kilowatts of rooftop solar, 30 kilowatts of energy storage, and for added reliability, 40 kilowatts of propane generation. This combination of energy sources will make the customers on Waterkey one of the few in the world where they are supplied by 100% clean energy, and within 2 years, we plan to completely eliminate the propane generator and make energy generation on the key 100% renewable. So I'm going to repeat that again so we can get an applause. This combination of energy sources will make the customers on Waterkey one of the few in the world where they are supplied by 100% clean energy, and within 2 years, we plan to completely eliminate the propane generator and make energy generation on Waterkey 100% renewable. Solar has many advantages. The most obvious is that the energy from the sun is free. However, when the sun isn't shining, for instance, during the night when the demand for electricity is generally at its peak, and during days with heavy cloud cover, energy will not be produced, and this is where battery storage comes in. We have enlisted the services of Tesla to partner with GBPC and develop a solution that will enable the solar inverters, batteries, and thermal generator to work as one cohesive unit, with the supply of energy being pulled from each source at the appropriate time and with the right balance to maximize energy production from the least cost resource first. While the motivation for this project was born out of the need to protect and sustain the environment on Waterkey, this project was also able to become a research and development case for microgrids on the main Grand Bahama Island, potentially the entire Bahamas, and definitely the world at large. The Waterkey Clean Energy Project is an exciting initiative for us at GBPC, and we will continue to share our progress within the upcoming months. We will be available throughout the day to demonstrate how the solution works at our staging area set up just outside in the lobby. Grid modernization. I spoke of battery storage as part of the Waterkey project, and it is an important piece of the equation to ensure clean and reliable energy around the clock for our customers on the key. But Waterkey isn't the only community that will benefit from a reliable and sustainable energy resource mix. Battery storage is an integral part of our sustainability strategy for the entire island of Grand Bahama. At Grand Bahama Power, we recognize that renewable and sustainable energy sources need to represent an increasingly significant part of our generation portfolio. If you are a resident of Grand Bahama, have you ever wondered why your clock is always fast? Contrary to popular belief, we are not speeding up your meter. As we are an isolated utility, hence we are not tied into a larger grid as with typical North American utilities. Our grid has an inherently weak inertia. Large dynamic loads in our electric grid result in frequency deviations that cause the governors on our diesel engines to exercise regularly to chase these loads and maintain a stable 60 hertz frequency. The governors are not fast enough to respond to these load changes, thus we operate with a higher than normal unit commitment strategy and thus an increased thermal spinning reserve to support grid stability. Along with the issue of grid frequency regulation, GBPC is embarking on a project to install 3 to 5 megawatts of utility scale solar in the near term, which will add another layer of complexity to our grid stability issue due to resource unpredictability of solar PV generation. As mentioned earlier by Dave McGregor, our COO, in preparation for the introduction of near-term utility scale PV, as well as community and residential solar penetration into the electricity grid, GBPC has committed to installing an 8 megawatt battery storage facility to provide a solution to our existing and foreseeable challenges with grid stability. This $7.5 million investment will provide the following benefits to our customers. 1, it will maximize the most efficient thermal unit commitment strategy that will provide stable generation for normal loads while chasing the frequency excursion caused by the island's dynamic loads. And two, it will maintain a reliable generation supply due to the variable and unpredictable output of solar generation while reducing the dependence on our thermal generation sources for spinning reserve. We plan to achieve these results all while maintaining rate stability and providing the same energy reliability that our customers on Grand Bahama enjoy today. This use case of utility scale batteries is a unique one and pushes the envelope for what is possible in the world through the use of energy storage. As a second solution to that complicated equation I explained earlier, grid modernization through energy storage is one that all residents and customers on Grand Bahama should be proud of and is scheduled to be completed in early 2019. In conclusion, at Grand Bahama Power, we are committed to investing in ways to make electricity generation cleaner, and we have a strategy for long-term energy sustainability here on Grand Bahama Island, and we are steadfast to execute. It is critical that we find ways to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and turn to sustainable energy resources to power our homes, businesses, and even our various modes of transportation. At GBPC, we have a responsibility to do what is right. We have a responsibility to do what we can to protect our natural resources, and in fact, all Grand Bahamians share that same responsibility. Thank you to the University of the Bahamas for enabling Grand Bahama Power to share its sustainable energy strategy during this forum today. On behalf of the GBPC family, we are excited and committed to being an essential part of a more sustainable future for Grand Bahama Island. Thank you for your time and interest in this presentation today.
So a pleasant good morning to all. So my topic this morning is somewhat of a rather simple one, which I will try to speak to you on the advanced metering infrastructure, or as we call it, AMI, at Grand Bahama Power Company. As you would have heard from our CEO this morning, that Grand Bahama Power is ready to set a strategy for a sustainable future here in Grand Bahama. And as project lead for some of the critical components of that strategy, I'd like to provide you with a little bit more details on the advancements in energy solutions that will help us to achieve our goal for creating a sustainable energy future. I'll be sharing with you our plans on future projects, which I'll talk about advanced meter infrastructure, grid modernization, or smart grid. In addition to that, wrapping up with electric vehicles. But before I get to that, I'd just like to take a moment to talk to you about the Internet of Things and the role that technology plays in the advancement of the energy grid as we know it today, but also the energy grid that we are creating for tomorrow. So I would like this part to be a little bit interactive for the first couple of slides, and it's called Name That Device. And by this way, I'm going to kind of gauge the age of the audience. So does anybody remember this? What is this? This was pre-videotape. This was Betamax. This one is the videotape, VHS. How about this? I think everybody had one of these. Cassette tape. This? Did everybody have one of these? I did. Run DMC. And one of these? Cassette disc player. So I've prepared a sound, and it doesn't appear to be working. So, and my clicker is gone. So the first one was, let me see if I can make it beep, dial up. And this, as we all know it, AOL, instant messaging. So if I could get you to work with me, my clicker is gone. Moving to the next slide. Here we go. Okay. So when we think about the Internet of Things and the way technology is moving, we look at new inventions, artificial intelligence, self-driving vehicles. Tesla is now beta testing a program with Uber where you can get into a vehicle with the directions already pre-programmed and it will automatically take you there. Robotics, also smart home technologies. I brought home a nice, fine young thing a couple of weeks ago, and my wife asked me, well, who is that? I said, well, her name is Alexa. So all of these advancements in technology is playing an intricate role in the way that we now see our businesses and even the power grid today. And just moving forward, we want information and we want it now. We want things at the tip of our fingertips. Social media, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Snapchat, Google+, YouTube, the likes. So all of these inventions or the advancement of technologies has played an intricate role in how the power grid of the future is what is going to look like. So this is just a slide that kind of depicts the Internet of Things all in one. It's a multiple devices that work together on one common platform that we call it the Internet, where information is at the tip of your fingers. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about AMI, or Advanced Metering Infrastructure. So AMI is a grid technology that enables the technological advancements in the way we provide information to you, our customers, through smart meters. These smart meters have the capability of somewhat similar to a cell phone. And what they do is they basically build a mesh from meter to meter, meter to what we call a router, or a router to a collector, that brings all of these meters together in a common point and provides information at the end of the day to you, the home user. So in essence, we move from receiving 1 meter read per month to receiving over 700 meter reads per month. It's information at your fingertips. Some of the other things that will allow us to do, which are the opportunities for AMI, are peak and load shifting. Because you now have the information at your fingertips, because you are empowered with this information, you now have the opportunity to say when you want to use more power than others. And one of our utilities that we've deployed smart metering, a customer told us that they now can tell when their kids are home, and they can tell when they're about to come home. Because the minute their kids come home, they turn on every light, they turn on everything, and their power consumption goes up. But when at 5 o'clock, when the parents are coming home, their power consumption drops. So they're energy smart to know that when mom and dad is coming home, they're now turning off the lights. In addition to that, it provides our customers with greater reliability and also for system integration. My clicker is gone again. Okay, here we go. increased reliability, better customer service, and also time of use, where we offer you, our customers, a better rate to use your power at different times of the day. This is some of the opportunities and the benefits that advanced metering infrastructure gives us. Some of the other benefits that are further down the road are prepaid, better being able to understand tamper and theft, remote connections and disconnections. If you're moving into that new apartment or that new home, you don't have to wait for a meter man to come and visit you. You can, with the click of a button, be connected to the grid, just like that. So when we look at AMI and beyond, AMI lays the groundwork for all of these technologies. When we are diversifying our portfolio, our energy portfolio is also being diversified in a sustainable way to include alternative sources such as solar, wind, time of use. When we are honing in on grid preparation for distribution automation, a distributed generation for rooftop and solars at your home. For those customers who are generating their own power through solar installations or other means, smart meters enable your used energy to be sold back to the utility grid. And this is just talking about the maximum amount of possibilities that we leverage by having a meter with the processing power of a cell phone at your home. Moving on to EVs. Over the past year, GBPC has invested in 2 electric vehicles. These fully electric cars and vans means that fewer of our fleet vehicles are burning fossil fuels and emitting carbons into our atmosphere. EVs are reliable, range and cost effective, and have proven to be a success for us. And we are pleased to say that we'll be making additional investments in electric vehicles later this year. It is our vision to add an additional 5 EVs to our fleet while we look to expand our charging stations throughout the island of Grand Bahama, being placed in public locations. Thank you. These fully electric cars, the Nissan Leaf and the Nissan Van, are lessening the utilities' dependence on fossil fuels. It's lessening our impact on the environment through pollution. As the company deepens its investment in renewable energy resources, such as solar and wind and EVs, these EVs play a critical role in our sustainable future. Some of the benefits of EVs are electricity is much cheaper than gas. So I created this slide just to talk about some of the price comparables of EV if you're charging your EV from your home as opposed to buying gas from a gas station. So the average EV, in order to go about 350 miles, it will take you about 105 kilowatt hours to charge that EV. The average rate is about 30 cents, and that 30 cents times 105 kilowatt charging hours is about $31.50. To travel that same length with a regular gas vehicle, it will cost you $73. Now, this is added onto the amount of air pollution that your regular vehicle is adding to the environment. So when we look at, that's a cost difference of $41 per month, or per use, per fill up. The average person fills up their vehicle about 28 to 30 times per year, once every week and a half, every 2 weeks, which gives you an average saving of over $1,000 per year. So we can say that EVs are good. Amen? That's the church in me. I thought that we would take a look at the utility as we know it today. And I have to give Dave kudos for this slide. I stole this from him a long time ago. the, the utility of yesterday, and looking at the transition, the utility of yesterday focuses on a centralized generation platform, one or two, especially for an island like Grand Bahama, generating facility that puts power onto the grid and moving to a customer's home. Notice that there's no solar, no EVs, no sustainable renewable devices or resources. Passive customers, one-way power flow. When we look at our utility of today, we now see that there is an introduction of solar. We also have an aging infrastructure. There's distributed generation, and there's a two-way power flow. Our customers want control. They want information. They want time of use pricing. They want the bells and whistles. Us being close to the United States, we see the advancement of technologies over there, so we want that same technology and that information here, which GBPC, by the way, is providing for you. And moving forward to the utility of tomorrow, where your centralized generation disappears, and you now have an internet or energy internet, where the excess power from one home powers another home and powers the grid. So this is the utility of the future, and all of this is made available by the advancement that Grand Bahama Power is providing to you, our customers. So in the end, efforts and investments that we are making today, whether it be solar and water key, whether it be advanced meter infrastructure, whether it be battery storage, whether it be EVs, are all a part of the technology of the future, or the Internet of Things. GBPC is moving with the tide of technology. We are taking the lead in sustainable energy, solar, and storage. And we are building a sustainable future for our sons, our daughters, our nieces, our nephews, and our grandkids. Sustainability is the key for electric utilities around the globe. Utilities are becoming less dependent on fossil fuels and more environmentally friendly through the use of those resources and emerging technologies. It is critical that we find a way to lessen our reliance on fossil fuels and turn to natural resources to power our homes, our businesses, and our vehicles. We need to become more dependent on our God-given natural resources, which are provided for us, each and every one of us, to use. The utility industry is changing. Today, distributed generation, rooftop solar, wind, vehicle to grid. Distributed resources will play a key role in our sustainable energy future. We want to provide for you opportunities in our communities for GBPC, for you to follow in GBPC's footsteps. I want to thank you for your time and your attention today, and I reiterate our CEO's commitment to the University of the Bahamas, as well as to you, our customers, on our sustainable future. Sustainability is to know and work with our God-given gifts and resources. And we are doing this along with 200 employees, some of whom are here today, whom are committed to you, our customers. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I don't have a prepared presentation for two reasons. One is I was only able to commit to participate today at the very last moment. But secondly, I much prefer to talk quite naturally. So there's one risk to that, of course. I may forget everything I wanted to say, but so bear with me. The theme of this session as we've seen, is a sustainable future. And I believe that that theme is totally compatible with the goals and objectives of the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce. Last year, we set our theme as what we described as the 3 C's. And the 3 C's were communication, collaboration, and coordination. And I think those 3 things are vitally important. We need to communicate, as far as the Chamber is concerned, with our members, with government, with the GB Port Authority, and with other stakeholders, and the community at large. We then need to collaborate. I am not a believer in confrontation. We may have different opinions, but we need to sit down, talk, and collaborate together. And then finally, the 3rd C, to coordinate our efforts for the greater good. And even though that was last year's theme, we still continue that theme through to the future. And this year's theme is to promote sustainable growth in the economy of Grand Bahama, again for the common good. I've always said for many years that what we need in Grand Bahama is critical mass. When Freeport was first designed, I believe the idea was it was built to accommodate 500,000 people. Our present population, I think from the chart I saw earlier that Derek put up, is 55,000 people. Now, I'm not advocating we grow to 500,000, but certainly the infrastructure can stand growth. And that growth can bring benefit to everyone. And how do we achieve that growth? We achieve that growth by attracting investment, whether it be new Bahamian businesses moving from other parts of the Bahamas to Freeport, or attracting foreign direct investment. All of those will create jobs. They will create jobs for the current unemployed. But they will also provide opportunity for Bahamians to move back to Grand Bahama. We've had this migration away from the island. They've moved to Nassau, they've moved to Bimini, they moved overseas. And I think Kevin mentioned a good point in the answer to one of his questions. We lose a lot of our young people who go overseas to study, and then they don't see job opportunities back here in the Bahamas. So they make America, Canada, or wherever their homes, and they don't come back. We need to create the opportunities for those young people to come back and use their talents and use their education here for the benefit of themselves and the community at large. So we need to create employment. We need to create critical mass. And to do that, I say we need to attract businesses. But we need an open mind to that. And I remember a few weeks ago, I was talking to a group of young entrepreneurs at the micro business initiative that the Ministry for Grand Bahama started. And after I'd spoken, one of the questions I was asked was, what do you think about the Commercial Enterprises Bill? And I said I supported it. And that created a reaction. And one lady stood up and she said, well, why do you support it? That's taking jobs away from or business opportunities away from Bahamians. And I said, look at it another way. I said, what is your business? And she said, I've got a business selling bath products, soaps and this sort of thing. And I said, okay. And what is your market? Who do you sell to? Is it tourists or is it the locals? And she said, oh no, my business is totally local. So I said, okay, your business now is restricted because your market is fixed. It is fixed to the current population of the Bahamas, of Grand Bahama, of Freeport. And I said, now imagine that if you open up the doors to more investment, and don't forget the Commercial Enterprises Bill was very specific as to what industries could benefit from that bill. I said, if the population went from, I said 40,000 at the time, I didn't realize we'd grown to 55. I said, if the population grows from 40,000 to 50,000, your potential market goes up 25%. You could grow your business on the back of that. And that's what I mean by creating critical mass. You know, it not only creates new jobs and direct jobs in the industries, but it helps to expand our economy. And if our economy expands, everyone benefits. And that's what we must promote. So how do we do that? And you know, we've talked about a lot of initiatives. I believe in diversifying our economy. For the last 20-odd years, our economy has really been based around tourism and the industrial sector. And as already has been said this morning, thank goodness we had the industrial sector to at least keep us going through the hard times with the problems we've had in the tourist sector following hurricanes, following economic depression, etc. And I'm pleased that we're now looking to diversify further, not to be just reliant on tourism, not just be reliant on heavy industry. We're talking about new technology. The Deputy Prime Minister mentioned earlier today about the film and television industry. Derek Newbold talked about this one in his presentation about second home market, real estate market, etc. So we need to broaden our economy because, you know, believe me, you know, we've had these peaks and troughs. Unfortunately, in the tourist sector, they've all been troughs for the last few years. But in any business sector, in the future, we're going to have peaks and troughs. So the more diversity of businesses we have, the more resilience we have to those peaks and troughs. And that's so important that we open our minds to look at all sorts of different businesses, different industries. And what can we do to help that? Well, the Chamber of Commerce has been working in collaboration, one of the 3 C's, remember, with the Grand Bahama Port Authority in looking at the ease of doing business. And we jointly submitted a report to the National Committee for the Ease of Doing Business based in Nassau, who in turn submitted a report to the government. And already we're seeing signs that our recommendations have been listened to. And that will make it easier for new businesses to open up. I say whether they be Bahamian businesses or whether they be foreign direct investment, we need to make doing business easier. And considering my 2 colleagues here from the power company, one of the things that we talked about was the cost of power. And certainly in the past, we've had, and to an extent even today, we have businesses complaining about 3 aspects of power. It's not just cost, you know, reliability, consistency of frequency, and cost. Now, we've heard this morning, and I would support what David McGregor said, the reliability of our energy has significantly improved over the last few years. They're about to address the question of frequency fluctuations with the $7.5 million, I think that's correct, investment in a new battery facility. We saw that on the screen a few moments ago. The third thing to address, therefore, is the cost of power. And certainly, I think, with the move over the next few years to renewable energies, in particular solar energy, that in its turn will bring down the cost of, not only bring it down, but give more reliability to the price of power going forward. And I think that's equally important as well. So when we're trying to attract new businesses to the island, you know, one of the things we can say, yes, we have power reliability, we have frequency, sustainability or consistency rather. And also we have a price level that is going to be, I wouldn't say guaranteed, but a price level that can be supported for many years into the future. And certainly with solar, the cost of the sun is free. So there are no fuel fluctuations in price. So what are we doing? What was the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce doing to try to attract new business? Well, again, we're working with government and we're working with the Grand Bahama Port Authority, but we have two initiatives going by ourselves at the moment, or not necessarily by ourselves, but ones that we've initiated. The first one, and I must give credit to the Deputy Prime Minister for this one, because when he was in the position of President of the Chamber of Commerce, he started to establish a relationship with the Houston Chambers of Commerce. And that relationship has grown and blossomed over the years to the extent that in May, we have the new elected mayor of Houston coming over to Grand Bahama, and he will be speaking at Chamber Luncheon at the end of May to look at opportunities for two-way trade between Grand Bahama and the city of Houston. And last week, we were visited by Lord Michael Howard, who is the patron of the British Caribbean Chambers of Commerce, together with the Vice President of that chamber, Pauline Wade. And we had discussions about formalizing a relationship between the Grand Bahama Chamber and the British Caribbean Chambers of Commerce. And in fact, at the moment, we are progressing with a memorandum of understanding, which we hope to sign in the next few weeks, which will open up opportunities to the British Caribbean Chambers of Commerce in other Caribbean islands, including Trinidad and Tobago, Cuba, Jamaica, but equally importantly to establish relationships with 51 different chambers of commerce in Great Britain, with the objective of being is to create opportunities on a two-way basis. Firstly, we'll be looking at export opportunities for Bahamian companies to help to promote their goods and services in other Caribbean islands and, importantly, in the UK. But equally, to look at UK companies investing here in Freeport, in Grand Bahama. And I think the timing of this is not coincidental. As we all know, Britain, by this time next year, will have left the European Union and will no longer be constrained by European Union rules and regulations, and will be looking for new trading opportunities. So I see that relationship, I see both relationships with the Houston Chamber of Commerce and with the British Caribbean Chamber of Commerce as creating some unique opportunities for us to develop trading links with both Houston, other Caribbean islands, and the UK. And that's something that during the next few weeks, the next few months, we will be aggressively pursuing. And finally, I'd like to leave you with one thought, please. Let us put politics and self-interest to one side, and let us work together for the common good. Thank you very much.
I actually wanted to know for myself as a consumer what the policies were on island in terms of bringing in electric cars. Were there any special incentives in place? I'm looking at you, not at them, Derek, sorry, related to that, even though you're not on the panel. Can you speak to it anyway for me? Is there? I realize that what GP Power is doing is encouraging us to become electric car owners. And I'm tempted, I just want to know as a user,
Yeah, there's really no policy in place in terms of the importation of electric vehicles here in Freeport. It's all about your decision. If you choose to go that route, it's entirely up to you.
All right, and I assume then that the same would apply if you want it to be a bonded vehicle versus.
Certainly. Yeah, you still get the bonded benefit if you choose to bring in an electric vehicle. If you own a business and have a bond.
If I own a business, yes, 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 very important. Very.
So, in the other parts of the Bahamas, in Nassau, government announced things like tie into the grid and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And there are all the issues, of course, that engineers with no safety concerns, et cetera. And I'm wondering how is that progressing here in Grand Bahama? What's allowed? Can you generate and you might have said it and I might have been checking email, so I apologize. But, can you generate your own electricity? Are you required to hook up to GBPA, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, what are the rules here, and what are you moving towards?
At Grand Bahama Power, we do have a program now called the Renewable Energy Rider Program that allows customers to grid tie a renewable generation system of their choice to feed back into the grid and receive a payment at a rate that's 10% above the fuel surcharge, and it's limited to, at this moment, 2 megawatts aggregated across the entire island, and each customer also can self-generate up to 50% above, I believe 50% is the right number, that's above their average annual energy consumption. 2 megawatts is what the existing program calls for, but as Dave McGregor would have mentioned earlier, within the next few months before the end of the year, that capacity limitation will be increased for customers, residential, commercial, and even industrials, in terms of how much we will allow to be penetrated into the grid. So from a utility standpoint, we're looking at the first 3, 4, maybe 5 megawatts that we are going to install in terms of renewable penetration. But for customers, that can go up to maybe even 8 megawatts. We've done the study with GE, and there's no engineering reason why at this moment we can't open the grid up to folks to self-generate, to have grid-tied renewable systems. And also the current rate that we propose now is also being reviewed to make the program more attractive to folks to have renewable generation systems that are grid-tied.
Do you have any special incentives for non-profit organizations?
I don't know if I'm the one at liberty to answer that, but what I would say is, I think if there are nonprofit organizations that are looking at ways to reduce their energy bill, they can come into our customer service center and we can have a discussion around that. Just to throw this out there, we're not opposed at all to renewable generation systems, right? We had to be prudent and do our due diligence to do the study first to see how we should approach it. Now that we know, we're going to take a strategic approach to it, and again, depending on who it is, I think the company, we're very flexible on what can be done, and it's as simple as a discussion with our customer service team, and I'm sure we'll be able to find the right solution for any customer that wants to tie into the grid.
With the integration of solar onto the grid, it's extremely important that we do it in such a way where those who are unfortunate and those who can't pay for a solar system don't end up carrying the burden or paying for those who have the ability to invest in large-scale solar systems. So that's also a critical part in the things in which we are doing to ensure that those who are less fortunate don't end up holding the bag for those who are more fortunate. So the cost of solar systems are, they're now reaching a point where they're a bit affordable, but it's still, to some, maybe a little bit more costly. So the the person who may be in a lower income may not be able to afford a solar system. So they would remain on the grid, fully grid tied. Whereas someone who is in a higher bracket of income is able to produce more energy onto the grid. So because they're able to produce the energy onto the grid, if we don't have the renewable energy rider in place to limit the amount of production, to limit what they only are going to use, then they're basically, the lower persons are subsidizing solar for those who in the upper class.
In the vision and the plans that you've shared, I'd like to hear you perhaps recommend or propose opportunities for potential entrepreneurs. As a faculty member, I see a number of my students here in the audience, and I think it would be perhaps beneficial to them to, if one of you would speak to potential entrepreneurial opportunities as part of this migration towards smart power generation.
Currently, we actually have 2 customers that are in the process of being approved as RER customers, only 2. It's not like we have folks beating down on the door, coming in all the time, asking us, hey, what do we have to do? Do you have any special incentives for us? If I invest in this much, will you limit me? Do you have a provision where I can invest in that much? Will you work with me? So again, I think it goes back to more engagement with the power company. We're not a organization that's averse to customers investing in a business such as solar generation. 2 of the customers that are currently in now with their applications, both of them have small businesses where they design, procure, and install renewable generation systems. Now, as the program begins to evolve more and the process is refined, we will ensure that we have the right balance for customers that do want to self-generate. And again, we throw out there, we can integrate right now, what we're eyeing is about nearly 8 megawatts of community solar or the distributed generation rooftop solar that folks can really tap into. So we want to ensure it's a partnership with the utility. So anyone that's interested in it, I'm going to throw Dawn on the spot right now. She's walking over there, but she's the customer service manager that really deals with applicants at the first stop when they come in. And myself, I am one of the engineers with the T&D group, of course, that looks at it from a technical perspective. So anyone that's interested, even before they leave today, they can have a conversation with us, and we'll definitely be able to work together on that.
Zoning in more on your point, how do we get young people involved? How do we get this younger generation enthused about a sustainable future? How do we allow them to gain the opportunities and realize their full potential in this industry? And those are some of the things that we're doing on an ongoing basis, whether it be working with COB to introduce a new solar program that's for UB, sorry, the University of the Bahamas, implementing solar there. They're going to be a huge part in that. We want for the lessons learned, for the educational aspect to be transferred into those younger persons. I truly believe that the advancement of Grand Bahama and beyond lies within a renewable future. And we need to start getting our younger persons on board, and we need to get them on board now.
My question, though, is based on a comment by Mick about the population possibly growing to 500,000. You didn't predict that or say that'll happen, but also comments we heard earlier today about Freeport being basically the e-technology center of the Bahamas, and both of those require, e-technology requires electricity. And so I'm really pleased to hear the plans of the utility to change some of their distribution systems, but also their method of producing electricity to more solar. That requires trained, skilled people, though, to the point you were just making. Are there plans to utilize Bahamians to develop and build those systems and maintain them, or are we bringing in people from Florida Power and Light? And I say that tongue-in-cheek, but I think we really need to build that skill set, because that skill set will be important not only here, but elsewhere in the Bahamas.
Because one of the things I think we need to be doing is not just looking at our requirements today, but we need to be looking 5 years, 10 years ahead. And it doesn't matter what industry anybody's currently involved in. We're in a rapidly changing world, and whatever industry or business you're in, it's changing. And one thing that, again, we're trying to do within the chamber is to identify what the future needs are going to be, and then to work. And Dr. Strawn and I have had conversations over the last 6 months or so since his appointment, and how we identify the future needs of the island's businesses, and then to gear our educational system right through high school, through BTVI, through the university or whatever, in a coordinated and planned manner, so that, yes, when those requirements do come along, we have people ready and able to take up those opportunities.
Just having moved here from, this is just a layman, I know nothing, but having moved here from Nassau, I have noticed the difference in wind, particularly where we are on East Grand Bahama Highway. Are you guys looking at wind turbines at all? Are you looking at wind generation of power at all? Maybe not in the short term, but at some point, is that something you contemplate? Have you looked at it and maybe decided maybe that's not workable? But I just wanted to know.
Dave didn't get into much details on the GE study, but one of the renewable resources that does seem to be viable here, again, is significant wind penetration here on the island. Now, Grand Bahama Island is really flat, right? So that means that we would have to install a very, very tall mast in order to capture the wind at higher elevations. And I think it's safe to say, I'm not sure if it'll be this year, but in the near term, we will start to tap into trying to evaluate the wind presence here on the island. Based on the findings of the study, it's showing us that wind can be a good balance to solar, and it can also help to offset the cost of having to make future investments into energy storage. The reason for that 8 megawatt battery system that we talked about earlier, its primary function is to really regulate the grid frequency so that we can have a more stable electric grid here. Secondary function will also be to provide PV firming, which is really stabilizing and smoothing the intermittent nature of the solar utility scale solar that we install. Now, we're not at this time really looking at using those batteries for peak shifting, because as with a solar resource, it's really only providing energy when the sun is shining, and you really only have a capacity factor of about 25%, which means you have a small period, a small window in the day where you will get maximum output from that. The load profile here on the island really has a nighttime peak. So when all the folks get home, cut on the stove, you wash your dryer, the air conditioning comes on, that's when we see the load starts to rise. So PV will actually not be able to help us combat that peak. That's where batteries come in. That's when you have a peak shifting technology. So we'll charge the batteries in the day, you store that energy, you discharge it in the night during the peak, and you don't have to turn on your thermal sources. But with wind is not like solar where it's only prevalent in the day and only for a small period. The viability of wind here on the island shows a fairly steady profile for 24 hours during the day. So it will help with frequency regulation, as the batteries will, but it also will be a resource during the nighttime peak that will help us to serve energy to the customers while still reducing our need on thermal generation sources. So it is something we're looking at. and it's something in the very near term, I would say, I'm certain within another year or so, or maybe even before the end of the year, that we will either erect a wind mast or we will start making preparations for some form of technology to really give us some empirical data on what we can expect for wind penetration here on the island.
The cost of electricity has had an adverse effect on the economy of Grand Bahama for a number of years, impacting both residential customers and our business customers. How quickly will Grand Bahama Power reduce the cost of electricity on the base rates? Giving us a timeline, how quickly can that happen?
So I wish I could give you a sure answer for that, but I think in its simplest terms, the way I would put it, in the words of my panelist, mind if I call you Mick? Yes, please do. In the words of Mick, really what we are attempting to do is keep downward pressure on rates and ensure that you have reliable, consistent, steady rates that you can depend on today and in the future. So all Grand Bahamians should be aware that Grand Bahama Power is committed to not increasing rates for the next 5 years. That was primarily due to a part of our efforts after the hurricane restoration, and it's something that we're really proud of and something that we've committed to that will not change. After this rate stability plan is over and we continue to invest in renewables, we continue to look at new technologies, the door is open for trying to ensure that we promote the economy here on Grand Bahama in one way or the other. And reliable, stable rates is a key for us. And we do not intend at this moment, as we've committed, to increase rates at all.
Will the base rate of electricity decrease within the next 5 years? Not after 5 years. Within 5 years, will it be a year, 2? Specifically talking about the base rate of electricity, will it decrease within 5 years?
Go back to the statement I made again. We've made a commitment to not increase rates at all. In terms of reducing the base rate, I'm just a measly old engineer with the T&D group. That's the best answer I can give you. But what I would encourage you to do, again, as I said earlier, is just, you can speak to our customer service team. I'm sure the communication folks are open to having that discussion with you. And I will ask them also. And if I do find an answer, and actually whatever answer I get, I will make sure, find you, my fine gentleman, and give you that answer.
Well, I don't have an engineering degree. And I can answer that question based on your response.
Okay.
I stand to be corrected. It doesn't appear that there's any intention to bring down the base rate of electricity anytime soon. That works against the development of Grand Bahama and especially the economy. So in this forum, I believe I can say that I speak for much of Grand Bahama. We need the rates of electricity, base rate, and fuel surcharge to come down very quickly, before 5 years.
Thank you.
God bless you.
So just, we appreciate that. Just one of the things for Grand Bahamians to know and to be aware of is that every day, and coming from the Tech Hub and the Tech Summit a couple of months ago, we're specifically working with the GBPA along with the government of the Bahamas so that new investors coming onto the island of Grand Bahama, that we can introduce special rates to them so that would not prohibit them in coming into Grand Bahama and starting up new businesses.